Jim, our next email sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com.
Zombies of the Stratosphere was another good cereal.
This is sent in by Brian, but people call me Hutch. I'm a fellow Louisvillian as well. Anyways, I was wondering if you ever had any problems with any referees in Smoky Mountain or WWF or any other promotion. Did you have any arguments, fights, or disagreements? Thank you for the show. Keep up the great work.
With referees?
You ever just have like a prickly referee that you had problems with that wasn't one of the regular ones?
Well, remember that fucking weasel son of George Scott's, Byron Scott, became a referee in WCW for a little while when they hired him during the period we just mentioned. And even Bobby Eaton didn't like him. He's the one human being I remember Bobby just coming up on his own rather than even agreeing with a knock. It was like he'd come out with it on his own. Look at that stooge. But we never had words with him. I didn't have any problems with or issues with the referees in Smoky Mountain because I hired all of them. I wouldn't have. Every once in a while, we had one referee in Smoky Mountain that I would have to encourage him to up his game every once in a while, but it wasn't in a
flash.
Well, he was dedicated, but every once in a while he'd do some inexperience, whatever. But no, I mean, there was the referees that they had from the state athletic commissions when Crockett first started going up. I mentioned New York, New Jersey. I think maybe, Pennsylvania was another one, and maybe one of the other northern states that. They were just so old and they didn't know our spots. They couldn't keep up with the pace and it hurt the match, that type of thing. But I can't remember just outright having out of all the stories I've ever told you, Brian, has a referee ever just completely fucked up and had to be throttled within an inch of his life?
I can't think of one. I'm trying to just think of referees you didn't like working with even. Taking the person out of the equation as a referee, was David Manning tough to be a heel in there with?
No, I mean I got along with David Manning. He was the referees in Dallas were a little bit glory happy, except for Bronco Lubitsch, who didn't care, bless him. But then you've got Bronco on the spot shows. He's counting with his foot. Yeah, he couldn't get up and down by that point. But David Manning was, he was like the Bruce Pritchard of the Fritz von Erich world-class wrestling office. He was dedicated and there from daylight till dark and that whole thing, and a little bit full of poop. But he was another Rick Hazard, even, who rode with me in the Midnight Express on some of the shows while we were there. He was one of the referees. He was from Georgia originally. He was a fun guy. We didn't have any problem with him.
Are there ever any issues with that?
With it? Well, that's why with David Manning, you had to, it was hard to get heat because he was going to stay babyface, but he was going to be there forever. So he had a point. I'm sorry, go ahead.
There are issues with baby faces and heels riding together. Any issues with the heels riding with the referee?
Well, no, that's the thing. You could tell a referee in the territory days with kayfabe was neutral in terms of, if guys had to get a ride and make it to the show, a promoter or the booker or whoever was not going to yell at the referee if he rode with one of the boys. Or a lot of times the referees would drive and they'd charge some of the underneath boys trans to ride in their car so it helped them make ends meet. So referees were neutral, but you could tell the top referee in most of the territories, the main event referee, he would choose to ride with the baby faces on purpose. And sometimes that Jerry Calhoun in Memphis was Jerry Lawler's brother-in-law at the time. So people kind of knew anyway. There was sometimes reasons why Jerry Calhoun wouldn't be seen with the guy that was about to kill Lawler next week. But if Thomas Marlin he'd ride with Dundee all the time, or some of the top baby faces. But Paul Morton, bless him, it was whoever was usually going to pay him trans, or maybe Pat Malone, just for the conversation or whatever. And it was accepted. But the babyface referees were harder to work with for the heels because they wouldn't, even if you were good at distracting them, they wouldn't stay distracted for 2 more seconds long enough for you to do your deal. They had to turn around and catch you.
They were strong baby faces. That's the thing. They weren't just baby faces. They were old, like strong baby faces.
Yes, like I'll brook none of your nonsense here tonight when you're trying to have the fucking match, right? But Fergie with Carl Fergie, they brought him to Louisiana to be a referee. He had wrestled in Tennessee, but he was making more money refereeing in Louisiana than he was wrestling in Tennessee. But every time I jump up on the fucking apron to distract him in a finish where I had to, and the boys are going to do something behind his back, he's like, "Oh, Corny, let me turn around. You're killing my blowjobs. You're killing my blowjobs." And then if it was the spot where then he would shove me down and turn around and the baby faces had foiled it and he would count the baby faces and they'd win, I'd go, "Okay, Ferg, get your blowjob." And he'd shove me down and he'd turn around and count 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the Rock and Roll Express wins. Every time he shoved me down, he thought about getting blown.
Who was the referee the night that the local ring announcer or the local timekeeper went into business for themselves and wouldn't ring the bell because they wanted to see the Rock and Roll Express beat the Midnight Express?
Oh, God.
Because what do you do in that situation if you're the referee?
I would almost want to say that it was Tommy Young just because, chances are it was a main event in Charleston, South Carolina in the Crockett territory that early in January 86. But it may have been Sonny Fargo, Roughhouse.
Oh, really?
Because he was still refereeing into 1986 and refereed a lot of. That's what me and Bobby especially always got a kick out of, because her referee is Roughhouse Fargo. And he was a stiffest son of a bitch. Boy, if he touched you in any way and or to try to get him to fucking turn his back. But and that's the thing. It was like it took a few minutes to realize and I guess we've lost a few members of the audience, but early in the Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express's run in the Carolinas, it was a world tag team title match. It was, I guess, probably, when did they won from it was January or February before we won it on the Superstation. The Superstars on the Superstation special.
February 86?
Okay, sometime in January. I don't have the Midnight Express book in front of me. But they're defending, they were defending. So that, wait a minute. Have I fucked this whole story up?
I'm not sure. You've started several matches.
It was us defending the title against them. So it was right after we won it. Because the point being, we were supposed to go a 60-minute Broadway. And that, but the timekeeper was one of the local in Charleston. Was it the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, or some type of, he was an older fellow that had been there forever as part of the sponsoring group or whatever. And we'd gone the 60 minutes, but he wouldn't ring the bell because he was convinced the Rock and Roll Express were about to win. And they had been calling the time, like 5 minutes remaining. Crockett did that back in those days. 5 minutes gone, 10 minutes gone, whatever. And the boys had timed their shit to where the Rock and Roll's making a comeback. We got a minute or two left, and they're doing some false finishes. And after 1 minute, we didn't hear shit. And we're like, what the fuck? And that's why I look over in the time kit's a local timekeeper too. And I'm like, what the fuck? And they're just not looking at me. So they went a couple more minutes, and that's when we had to say, fuck it. And we did a top rope DQ or whatever it was. It's in the book. But the promoter, Henry Marcus, went to the guy afterwards and said, why didn't you ring the bell? And he said, I was watching. I was so convinced the Rock and Roll Express was going to win if they just had a little more time. And fuck. So But in all the local towns in those days, you had local ring announcers from the radio station, or even just a local guy, and local timekeepers from the sponsoring group, the VFW. And the announcer in Evansville, Indiana for years was just a member of the state athletic commission that was a nice fellow, but as dry as fucking toast. But just, it just happened to be whoever it was.
Do you remember the first time you worked with Tommy Young? And did you guys like gel right away? Did it take time? I mean, you worked really well with him.
No, well, the first time we worked with him was the first week we were working for Crockett. I can't remember the exact match or specific show, but he was the main referee. So the first week we worked in it, and when we came to work for Crockett, we were in Georgia, but still, we did the syndicated TV. So shortly after we got to work for Crockett, mid '85, and I mean, you didn't really need to work hard to gel with Tommy. He was brilliant. He was best in-ring referee that we ever worked with, and he was just natural. And he was fun for me to work with and play off of, because he was so good at he had his own personality, but it didn't look phony. It wasn't over the top. It was legitimate for him, and people could tell. And just the little things that he did, we've talked about it a million times in the ring, in matches, or the way he went for the counts, or the urgency with some things, or the puzzlement of other things, or registering on his face when he saw he had made a 3 count, but he looks up and he sees the champion's leg on the ropes. And then there's oh my God, I've made a mistake. It would just flowed with him. And we could argue back and forth with the people all day long, and they liked it, but it was a natural, a back and forth rather than something that we really planned. He just picked up on shit, and then we did it.